deer in the headlights look. But I'm not going to have the deer in the headlights look because I know what they are. And so I know what they can do. I know what bump stocks can do. So that's, in that way, I'm the NRA's worst nightmare in that sense.
Yeah, that's great. You certainly know a lot more about guns than I do. So I am really glad that there are people like you who are starting to step up and talk about, what sorts of common sense gun laws we could be passing, who know a lot about guns. So that's terrific.
Thanks. Yeah, whenever I give discussions, I've worked with Moms Demand Action, and I'm thrilled to have been awarded the Moms Demand Action Common Sense Advocate. Or gun sense advocate. So they send out a survey and we answer questions. And so we've got recognized for that, I think about 4 to 6 weeks ago. So that's just let you know, Moms Demand Action, they're not anti-Second Amendment, and a fair amount of their members do own guns, handguns and rifles. So that gives, I think, that organization much more legitimacy. They're not saying no guns. They're just saying, hey, look, we're dying at a very, very high rate here. What's the benefit? What things can we do to stop this? Not reduce it, but to stop it. One of the kind of analogies I use is, imagine if I was diagnosed with cancer and my oncologist said, well, Mark, what you need is more cancer, right? So it makes absolutely no sense. But for the gun discussion, for some reason, the proposed solution from one side is, well, we need more guns. So if someone can find another issue where everyone agrees there's a problem, whether it be cancer or debt, or in this case, gun violence, and the solution is more, help me understand it, because whenever I pose that question, that's where it's followed by silence, because there is no other issue where everyone agrees that there's a problem, but this is the only one where one side says, well, we need more. The answer to gun violence is not more guns. It's fewer, and it's more scrutinized access to them, that it should be more difficult to get your hands on them. And so people like to use the example of Chicago. Well, Chicago's got some of the toughest gun laws in the country, and it's not working there. Say, okay, well, who are the neighboring states? If Indiana, if Missouri, if Iowa don't have similar gun laws, it's really difficult to enforce. So one bill that was going through the Missouri House is called HB 1936, House Bill 1936. And what it is intended to do, and this is no exaggeration because the language is actually there, is to allow concealed carry weapons in schools, in daycares, in bars, because that's what we need, in stadiums, in arenas, in school buses. So it is an unbelievable response, an unbelievable approach that people are taking. And right now the Missouri Republican Party has taken, where Democrats are outnumbered 3-1. So yeah, their solution to gun violence is more. And it's truly, truly, truly unbelievable.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that our listeners know about you and your campaign?
This is one thing I say. Republican failures are not the same thing as Democratic successes. So if people are waiting for a blue wave, keep waiting. But we have to be the cause of that wave. And the way we do that is through better policy. I am tired of excuses of why Democrats don't win. We don't lose because of gerrymandering. Yes, that is definitely an issue. But we lose because we have the wrong message and the wrong messenger. I think we need to be clear and bold in our policies and our ideas. This is not the time to be vanilla. This is not supposed to be divisive. It's just there has to be clear leadership and policy and guidance, not just kind of vanilla platitudes that don't mean anything or will go anywhere. So we can't wait for one other party to fail. And I take absolutely no joy in the Missouri Governor Eric Greitens' struggles. I take no joy in President Trump's struggles and issues. But it's not enough just to point out his failures or concerns. We have to be better. And that includes me, and that includes the party as a whole. So we just can't wait for them to fail so bad that people just take anybody else. We have to be better in every single sense of the word.
All right. Excellent. So thank you so much for joining us. This has been a really great
discussion.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot, and have a great afternoon.
You too.
You too.
All right, thanks.
Hi, I'm Sheena, the host of the Dear Mill Family podcast. I talk about anything and everything related to military life with other military spouses, active duty members, veterans, and even children, about the challenges we face and the silver linings we find along the way. Let's face it, military life is difficult enough, so if we can talk more to each other about choices, get advice from those who have been there, and have some fun connecting, we can better navigate the military lifestyle. There is definitely not one way to live this life, so come on over and embrace the suck with us. New episodes release every Tuesday, and you can find me on social media, dearmillfamily.com, or on your favorite podcast app.
we are on today with Omar Siddiqui, who is running for Congress from the California 48th District. Hello, Omar.
Hi, how are you all? Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you for joining us. So we wanted to talk today some about your campaign in general, but then also specifically about some questions we had about national security. So could you start by giving us a little bit of background? You have an interesting professional background, so if you could sort of take us through that.
Well, thank you very much. By background, I'm an engineer. I'm a lawyer. I have a Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees in engineering from the University of Southern California. And because one of my childhood heroes was Benjamin Franklin and Leonardo da Vinci, guys who were both art, humanities, and the sciences, right after graduating with my master's in engineering, I went to law school and graduated with my law degree from Loyola Law School, after which I was a trial attorney for several years and started my own firm back in 2004. My background gets somewhat unique in that in 2010, I was recruited by the FBI to work on matters of national security and counterterrorism, and I have been doing that ever since. Our programs there had been successful such that in 2015, I was recruited by the Central Intelligence Agency to assist in engagement matters there as well.
So our first sort of question for you then is what you would rate right now as sort of the biggest threat to national security?
Well, I can give you hot off the press news. Last Thursday and Friday, I was at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., where I met with the Office of the Director, and I met with Director Christopher Wray as well, the current FBI Director, who replaced Director James Comey. And what seems to be on the radar right now, obviously, is the international, specifically Russia's tampering in our elections. And the concern is that they did it and that they're going to do it again. So in my opinion, one thing that is of critical importance right now is ensuring that our democracy is not being interfered with by outside sources. As you can imagine, if our voters feel that their vote doesn't count, that our voting systems are compromised, that I think undermines the very democracy of who we are. And of course, it ends up in election results that are not accurate and actually are in the best interests of our foreign adversaries, not the voice of the people.
And so what is something that the Congress, that the government should be doing to deal with that threat?
That's a great question. I think what needs to happen right now is our government, regardless of party, we have to put politics aside on this and realize that national security does not label itself a Republican, Democrat, or Green, or Libertarian. National security affects everyone, regardless of party. And as a result, I think what Congress needs to do is it needs to ensure that our intelligence communities, the FBI, the agency, the Central Intelligence Agency, the NSA, and the White House are all working together in concert to ensure that we can prevent a further attack. That may be including ensuring that our various secretaries of state, our county registrars' offices have the firewalls, the hardware, the software, the tools in place necessary. Unfortunately, none of that is happening right now.
Are there any other things that you think are threats that we should be taking more seriously? Are there things that, as a national security expert, keep you up at night?
Yes. I think one thing that is of major concern to me that keep me up literally all night, many times a week, is the fact that despite all of the gun violence that we have been facing in our country, nothing is being done about it. And that kind of ties in with the element of counterterrorism, which I work with the FBI on, in the sense that we have the ability, unfortunately, to sell a gun easier than it is to obtain a license to fish. You need a license to fish, you need a license to drive a car, but you don't need any of that, any training, any background checks, really, to acquire a gun. And I think that's an issue of national security that we need to address right away. For example, I was working very closely with the FBI on the San Bernardino tragedy and that attack. And there was an individual who supplied all the weapons to the terrorist who committed this heinous act. And that literally was something that was so shocking because how easy it was for someone to get military-grade, military-style weapons so easily. And that needs to stop. That needs to change. I think it's definitely a matter of national security. If we're not even safe in our schools, we're not even safe out in public, that is a major concern for us. And I think that needs to be addressed. What I think in Congress, what we need to do about it is we need to immediately enact legislation that requires background checks. Look, as a gun owner myself, I understand. I respect the Second Amendment. But our gun laws need massive reform. If there are over 300 million guns here in the United States, enough for every man, woman, and child. And we can't have another Sandy Hook, another Aurora, another Virginia Tech, a Las Vegas, San Bernardino, Orlando, countless, too many others. We need to improve and enforce our background checks and screening checks. One thing that's of concern for me, which I'm working on as well, is if you're on the national security no-fly list, that doesn't bar you from purchasing a weapon, which is counterintuitive. I mean, if you're on a no-fly list and you're considered a threat that you can't even board an airplane, why would you be able to purchase a weapon? That's a concern. Another thing that should happen is, as we see too often enough, mental health is a big issue when it comes to these mass tragedies. There should be background check screenings when it comes to mental health before you can acquire a weapon. Another thing we need to do is we need to research and improve the safety of guns. Like I mentioned, if you need a license to go fishing or drive a car, you should have a license to own a gun. There should be periodic training as well. We can't, live in fear of the gun lobbies anymore who are interested in profits over lives. Enough is enough. And I guess I'll just close with another immediate thing that we can do is we have to make sure that we get semi-automatics, bump stocks. Those need to be restricted or, in my opinion, banned altogether. We don't need military-style weapons in the hands of the civilians.
The Trump administration has been trying to enforce various bans on travelers, immigrants, and even refugees from certain countries in the world on the premise that extreme vetting, quote unquote, is necessary for national security purposes. What do you think about the travel bans from a national security perspective?
Well, although I understand the intention, or I should say I understand the premise behind making sure we vet those who come into our country is critical to ensure that we are not letting in someone who has nefarious intentions to our country. I get that. But when you base that decision on race, religion, national origin, ethnicity, that's where I think it crosses significantly, severely, the constitutional line. I'm the first one to say that we have to ensure that we have national security and that we vet and perform background checks on individuals who seek to come into our country. However, that has to be painted equally. That cannot be, we cannot pinpoint and try to isolate anyone based on factors that are unconstitutional. I think that compromises who we are. I think to say that someone from one country is less likely to be nefarious than an individual from another country is racist, it's bigoted, and it's targeted. And I disagree with the Trump administration's efforts to ban individuals from certain countries just because of politics. That's not going to make us safer. In fact, the opposite's going to happen. And that's one thing I emphasize, Sophy Kelly, is that we need a congressman who understands national security, not like Dana Rohrabacher, who, in my opinion, is a national security threat. It's a dangerous world out there, and we need someone in Congress who understands national security, who's well-versed in diplomacy, has worked with the intelligence community such as I have, who's worked with presidents. I've worked with President Obama. I've worked with Director Comey. I continue to work with the FBI. I've worked with secretaries of state. I've brainstormed policy with the CIA director. These are experiences that no other candidate has, and I'm ready for that on day one.
So can you tell us a little bit about the California 48th District, where exactly in California it's located, and what the issues are that really concern the residents there?
Sure. California's Congressional District 48 is a district in Orange County in Southern California. The current incumbent is Republican Dana Rohrabacher. The district includes the cities, and I'll just throw shout-outs to them. It's Aliso Viejo, Corona del Mar, Costa Mesa, Fountain Valley, Huntington Beach, Laguna Niguel, Newport Beach, Seal Beach, Sunset Beach, and portions of Garden Grove, Midway City, Santa Ana, and Westminster. But what makes this district extremely unique is its ever-increasing diversity, especially when compared to even 20, 30 years ago. The district comprises of some of the largest Asian American and Latin communities. For example, outside the central part of the district near Westminster, Garden Grove, that area has amongst the largest Vietnamese American population anywhere in the world outside of Saigon. So it has a moniker